dealing with food relationship issues. Watch this.
Our first caller is Brooke from Pennsylvania.
Hey, Brooke, how you doing? How can we help you?
I'm good. How are you guys doing?
Good.
Very good.
Great.
All right. So I just want to thank you guys so much for having me on the show to ask you guys a question. I'll get right into it with a little bit of background of where I'm at. I never really exercised regularly until about 2019. I got into weight training a little bit, but I never really had a proper program until March of 2022, at which point I just kind of got focused on building strength and focusing on building up some muscle. And I did that until January of 2023. And now I am in the final week of phase 2 of MAPS Anabolic. The main topic of my question today actually has to do with nutrition and having a healthy relationship with food. So I do have a history of disordered eating. When I was a young teenager, around like 14, 15, I did deal with some anorexia and a short period of some bulimic behaviors. And then once I was about 16, I never really recovered from that or moved on from it. I just kind of moved into a different form of disordered eating. So I've been kind of binge eating on and off since I was about 16. But in the past 8 to 12 months, I have developed something very weird. And basically, I can stick to a meal plan all day and do perfect. But I go to sleep at night and I will wake up at some point during the night with just an uncontrollable urge to eat. And it feels like I cannot go back to sleep until I eat something. Typically, that is something sugary or some sort of carbs. So I just really want to get some advice on how to build a healthy relationship with food since I've never really had one. So my question here is, have any of you ever worked with a client that has had this type of disordered eating? And do you have any advice for myself or anyone like me who is dealing with this and just wants to build a healthy relationship with food?
Yeah, Brooke, I had a client with night eating syndrome before.
I have too.
So have you worked with a therapist on any of this?
I have in the past. I had to switch, and I have not been able to find any therapists in my area that are both accepted by my insurance and really like willing to say, okay, I think I can work with you on this.
Okay, because
that's been a struggle.
That's where I'm gonna point you, because I could give you structures. I could say to you, set up your meal plan so that it allows you to have food in the middle of the night, so it works within your meal plan. I could say something like, I've heard people say that they put a lock
That's what my client did
on their cabinet, and that in order for them to get it, they have to like do this process, which gives them pause type of deal. But the problem, and I want to say this too before I go on, none of us are therapists or experts in eating disorders. We've just trained a lot of clients, and so probably have dealt with a few of these. So from my experience working with clients and working with my client's therapist, this is where I learned the most, okay, is I would get a client with some form of disordered eating, and then what I would do is I would ask them if it was okay if I worked with their therapist, and then I would work with the therapist to work with the client. And what I learned from that was that if there's something that's unresolved, that this is going to manifest itself in 101 different ways. So you'll stop it from manifesting by, I'm not going to binge during the day anymore. But then what it does is it manifests into night eating disorder, or I'm going to stop, anorexia, but then it turns into bulimia, or I'm going to stop, I'm going to create so much structure, but then it manifests as orthorexia. So there's something that's unresolved, and there's something at the root. And if we don't, this is like taking painkillers to stop a headache that's being caused by you hitting your head against the wall. Like, we have to stop that. The painkillers may mask the pain, but if we don't solve the root issue, then what's going to happen is, even if you figure out a way to prevent yourself from having disordered eating, it may manifest itself in some other disordered something. Sometimes it turns into
it's not a may. It
drug.
will.
Yeah,
it will.
It could be drug abuse.
Okay.
It could be exercise addiction. It could be promiscuity. It could be like so many different ways. So you have to address the root issue, and all of your attempts at putting boundaries and walls around this, you'll find yourself becoming more and more frustrated. And what may happen by pushing this further and further is it the manifestations may get worse and louder. Okay, so so my advice is this: put your efforts into finding someone you can work with on figuring out the root cause. Because until you do that, I mean, you can figure out how to figure out not to eat in the middle of the night, but it's going to come out in some other different way. Is probably what's going to happen.
There's really not too much to add to that, because Sal's right. Like, at the end of the day, even if we gave you this incredible hack that helped you out temporarily, it will manifest itself somewhere else, some other way. And so absolutely getting counseling through this is the number one focus. There are things I think that you can potentially do during that process, because obviously it's not like you go to one, therapy session and all of a sudden you're cured or something, right? So there is stuff that strategies you do. First of all, I would not keep these foods in my house. Like for me, I like the ice cream weakness and stuff like that. Like not having them in my house is the first step to not allow myself to do things like that.
Right.
The other one would be structure my diet to where I'm eating like a, higher fat, higher calorie meal, like right before bed, because I ate less calories through the day. And so I'm kind of hoping that I don't wake up with some sort of craving by doing that. So that could help too. So you could structure it that way. You eat the same amount of calories you put in. Or another thing too is like, I don't know exactly what your deficit is right now. Maybe you're at too large of a deficit. And so it's like you're cutting weight, maybe cut less calories or eat closer to maintenance instead of restricting so many calories so you're not so hungry. And then also structure it in a way to where the bulk of the calories is towards the end of the day, so you don't feel like you're also really hungry at night. So those are some like temporary strategies that I think you can do to potentially help mitigate this while you're working on the root cause. But Sal's right, at the end of the day, that even if we solve this one issue for you, it will manifest itself somewhere else.
Yeah, I do want to add this too, Brooke. I'm very hopeful for you for a couple different reasons. One, you're on a podcast live telling us, and you're very open, and you're 22 and you're doing this. Mm-hmm. That is huge.
Very self-aware.
That is huge because it's almost impossible to work or solve if the person can't. Most people don't even admit it to themselves, let alone tell other people, and let alone put it out there for other people to listen to. So you're actually beyond the hardest step. So everything from here is going to be positive. You just have to take those next steps. Here's one thing I'll say, and you could try this. What I said earlier still stands, okay?
Yeah.
But here's what I'm going to say that you could try, and it's going to be painful, and it's going to suck, and it's probably going to result in some sleepless nights initially.
Okay. Could
you replace eating with something else in the middle of the night? In other words, a blanket piece of advice would be, when you get up in the middle of the night and you have that crazy craving, and you can't go back to sleep unless you satisfy it, maybe you sit down and you journal, and you journal and journal and journal. And if you don't go back to sleep, so be it. But you journal the entire time. Now it's going to be painful. You're going to have to deal with whatever feelings come up, and you're going to have to deal with the sleeplessness that is probably going to come from that initially. And that's just one example. It could be journaling. It could be meditation. It could be prayer. It could be something mindful, nothing distracting. So I wouldn't want you to replace this with something that's distracting, like
watching
TV, listening to music, like trying to just like, okay, I got to distract myself type of deal.
Doing cardio or something.
You got to get in.
That makes sense.
Yeah, you got to get into what the hell you're feeling, which sucks. It sucks. I'm going to be straight up with you. So I like journaling a lot, because what journaling does is it's a form of thinking that allows you to take pause and end what are known as cycles of thinking. So when we keep thoughts in our head, we tend to cycle thoughts, but when we write them down, we tend to complete thoughts. And you'll notice when you write what you're feeling and thinking, it's more complete, and you tend to end that cycle of a thought. So it causes less anxiety. It's just more intensive, and it forces you to look at what's going on, which is really, really, really hard. So maybe try that for now. But in the meantime, I would say look for someone that you could work with that is a therapist that can help you. And they don't necessarily, I mean, ideally it would be somebody that is an expert on disordered eating, but you could also just find a trauma therapist. So if you're having trouble finding someone with who works with eating disorders, that's within your insurance network, broaden your search and look for people who work with trauma, because the skills, there's a lot of carryover there with the
Okay, absolutely.
Yeah. So
in doing this, should I attempt to stay in a deficit, or do you think from experience, would it be more beneficial for me to move back towards a maintenance and try to just stay at maintenance until I get this kind of under control?
Here's what's going to happen, Brooke.
Yes.
The harder you focus and look at your diet, the worse this is going to get.
Right.
Okay. So I want you to do less, not more. So calorie deficit, maintenance, surplus. Why don't we do this instead? Let's make it easier. Don't worry about maintenance. Don't worry about deficit. Don't worry about surplus. Just give yourself this right here. I'm going to eat as much as I want. I'm just going to eat whole natural foods. That's all. That's the only rule you give yourself. If I want to eat, I'm going to eat. As long as it's whole natural foods, I'll eat a bowl of fruit. I'll eat bananas. I'll eat some steak. I'll eat some chicken. I'll eat a bowl of rice. But
I like the sound of that.
So just do that, because what's going to happen is if you place your focus on your calories and macros and you start counting those things, even if it's maintenance, too much focus is going to make this worse. Less focus tends to make this a little bit better.
Okay, awesome. I really appreciate that, you guys. The journaling idea, I did begin journaling at the beginning of this year, but I never thought to do it in the middle of the night when I wake up. I'm definitely going to give that a go, maybe give some meditation or prayer a go. I really hope I see some improvements in that, and I'm really hoping I find a therapist that I can work with soon.
Yes, and expect it to suck. So don't think your expectations should not be, all right, tonight when I wake up, I'm going to journal and I'm going to feel so much better. Your expectation should be, I'm going to journal. It's going to suck way worse. It's going to be really, it's going to suck. It's going to be a whole shitty night of me journaling and whatever. So just do that, and then eventually it will get better, but expect it to suck.
I can do that. Absolutely.
Okay. Good.
Brooke,
That's about all I got for you guys. I really appreciate this. That really did give me some good insight into how I can take some new approaches to this.
Yeah, listen, don't hang up yet.
Yeah.
I think I know where Adam's going.
Yeah, Brooke, I'm going to have Doug put you in our private forum.
Yeah,
So,
why don't you let us follow along?
Yeah.
Give us some follow up, and it might help to have that kind of support.
Absolutely. I really, really appreciate that, you guys.
You got it.
Brooke.
Thanks,
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Dare I say, do you see in the future that, like, I just feel like this would be such a great candidate for therapy and psilocybin? You talk about somebody who's got like deep, like
to just face it and address it.
Trauma or issues that are.
You know what they're using right now for that? Like here in California, I don't know where she's at if this is legal, but you can actually do ketamine therapy with therapists and doctors. So it's like literally with licensed professionals.
Yeah.
And
in a clinical setting.
Yeah. And the results that they're getting are phenomenal.
Yes.
Phenomenal. So
I mean, I really think didn't another state just decriminalize it again? I thought I just saw somebody do a post. It's starting to make its way around right now. As far as, like, I think in the next 5 to 10 years, it's going to become like a, the way, like, it was very taboo to even talk about marijuana just 10 years ago. I think it'll be that widely accepted in the next 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, the ketamine therapy is really cool. I'm so glad they do that in California. I want to add, just keep adding to this. Is like, I dealt with body image issues for a long time, and I mean, I still have them. They're still there. But the hardest part was me just admitting to myself, let alone telling other people. So at her age and what she's saying, and that's such a big
She made
deal.
a big step, just admitting that and being honest about it with herself. And I think it's just so valuable too, as a trainer and a coach, to align yourself with a therapist, because there's just going to be so many examples like this, where just, having somebody to really counsel and talk them through a lot of these things will, spawn such a great result.
Yes. And because this is the big one, what you do as a trainer and a coach for someone else would be the wrong opposite thing that you would do for someone like this.
Yeah.
Like for someone else, you'd be like, well,
isn't
track,
just math
write things down, do the, like, you would make someone like this worse. So I mean, just want to put an exclamation point on that. If you're a trainer or coach, align yourself with therapists, and you get someone like this, do not advise them. You work with the therapist, and the therapist is going to advise you on how to handle this, and then you'll do a great job.